I was 19 and house sitting for my parents. They were visiting my aunt in Wisconsin, just for the weekend. I didn't mind staying alone. I'd done it before. It was January, one of those winters where the snow doesn't stop for weeks. That Friday, the forecast said we'd get 8 inches overnight. By 6 p.m., it was already coming down hard. I made myself some ramen, put on a movie, and curled up on the couch. The house was warm. The wind howled outside. I remember thinking how cozy it felt. Around 9 p.m., our dog Buster started acting weird. He kept staring at the back door, not barking. I walked over and looked through the glass. Nothing but snow. Thick, white, untouched snow covering the whole backyard. I told myself it was probably a deer or something. I went back to my movie. An hour later, I got up to get a drink. I passed by the back door again, and I stopped. There were footprints in the snow. They came from the tree line at the edge of our property, straight line toward the house. They stopped right at the back porch. Near here, I pressed my face against the glass, trying to see the porch itself. It was too dark, but I could see one thing clearly. But there were no footprints leading away. My stomach dropped. I stepped back from the door slowly. I told myself maybe it was my dad. Maybe he came back early and checked on the generator. But his car wasn't in the driveway, and he would have come inside. I locked the back door. Then I checked it again. Then I checked the front door. Then every window on the first floor. Buster was still staring at the back of the house, worried his tail was between his legs. I grabbed my phone and texted my mom. Did Dad come by the house tonight? 3 dots. Then her reply. No, honey, we're still at Aunt Debbie's. Why? I didn't answer. I turned off all the lights downstairs. If someone was outside, I didn't want them seeing in. I sat on the stairs, holding a kitchen knife, watching the back door. 20 minutes passed. Then I heard it. Then a slow, soft creak, coming from the basement. We have an old house. The basement has a door that leads outside, a bulkhead door. My dad always keeps it padlocked. I heard another creak, then footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming up the basement stairs. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just ran. I grabbed my keys, ran out the front door barefoot into the snow. I got in my car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely start the engine. I drove to the neighbor's house, a quarter-mile down the road. I was crying when they opened the door. Mr. Hansen called the police. It took them almost an hour to arrive because of the snow. By the time they got there, whoever it was had left. But here's the part that still haunts me. The cops checked the basement. The bulkhead door was open. The padlock had been cut clean through. And inside the basement, on the floor, there were wet footprints, a trail of them, leading from the bulkhead, up the stairs, and stopping right at the basement door, the door that opens into the kitchen. The door that I had walked past at least 3 times that night. It wasn't locked. I never found out who it was. The cops said it was probably someone looking to steal stuff during the storm. But that doesn't explain why they waited, why they stood there, right on the other side of that door. I don't house sit anymore, and I never ever ignore footprints in the snow.
My wife and I bought a cabin in 2019. Nothing fancy, just a small A-frame about 2 hours north of Burlington. We'd go up there on weekends to disconnect. No neighbors for at least a mile, no cell service unless you drove into town. We loved it. In February 2021, I took a week off work to stay there alone. My wife couldn't get the time off. I figured I'd read, chop some wood, enjoy the silence. The first 3 days were perfect. Snow came down soft and steady. I kept the fire going, made coffee, watched the trees disappear into white. On the 4th night, the storm got worse. The wind was so loud I could barely hear myself think. I decided to turn in early.
Around 11 p.m., I heard knocking.
At first, I thought it was a branch hitting the cabin, but then it came again. 3 slow knocks. On the front door. I sat up in bed. We don't get visitors. We've never gotten visitors. I grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand and walked to the front room. Through the small window on the door, I could see a shape. A man, standing on the porch. I turned on the porch light. He was maybe 40, average build, wearing a winter coat but no hat. His hair was wet with snow. He was smiling. I cracked the door open just a few inches. "Can I help you?" "I'm so sorry to bother you," he said. "My car broke down about a mile back. I saw your lights." His voice was calm, polite, but something about his smile felt off. It didn't move, even when he talked like it was painted on. "I don't have a phone that works out here," I said. "Nearest town is 20 minutes east." "I know," he said. "I just need to warm up. Just for a few minutes, please." I looked past him into the darkness. The snow was coming down hard. I couldn't see anything beyond the porch. "Where's your car?" I asked. "Down the road. Maybe a mile." "Which direction?" He paused. "East," he said. I looked down at the porch, at the snow piling up on the wooden steps, and that's when I noticed. There were no footprints. The porch was covered in a thin layer of fresh snow, unmarked, like no one had walked on it. I looked back at him. He was still smiling. Same smile, same exact smile. "I'm sorry," I said. "I can't let you in." I closed the door. I locked it. I turned off the porch light. I stood there in the dark, my back against the door, trying to control my breathing. I waited for knocking. It didn't come. After a few minutes, I looked through the window again. He was gone, resigned. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the front room with a fire poker in my hand, watching the door. When morning came, the storm had stopped. I put on my boots and stepped outside. The porch was covered in snow, untouched. But that wasn't the part that made my stomach turn. I walked around the cabin, every window, every wall, and I found something. On the back window, the one next to my bed, a circle of fog on the glass, like someone had pressed their face against it from the outside. And in the center of that fog, two small streaks, like someone had wiped just enough to see through. I measured the height later. It was exactly at eye level. I drove into town that morning. I told the guy at the general store what happened. He got quiet. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You're the third person this winter." He said 2 other folks had reported the same thing. A man knocking on their door during a storm, saying his car broke down, asking to come inside. No one ever found a car. No one ever found tracks. And no one who let him in ever called back to say what happened. I sold the cabin that spring. I never went back. Some nights when the wind picks up, I still think about that window, about the fog, about how long he must have been standing there, watching me sleep, smiling. Every Christmas, my family goes to my grandmother's farmhouse. It's a tradition. Big dinners, board games, kids running around. The house is old, built in the 1940s. It sits on about 12 acres of land, mostly woods. Last December, I drove up a day early to help my grandma prepare.
I got there around 4 p.m.
The snow was already a foot deep. Grandma wasn't doing well. She'd been having memory issues. Nothing serious yet, but enough that we didn't want her alone for long. Before I even brought my bag upstairs, she pointed at the back door and frowned. The motion light above it had been dead for months. She kept forgetting, and I kept forgetting to fix it. I told myself I'd handle it in the morning. That first night, we ate soup and watched TV. She went to bed around 8 point. I stayed up, scrolling on my phone. Around 10, I stepped outside for some air. The sky was clear. The snow had stopped. Everything was perfectly still. I looked out at the field behind the house, and I saw something. A figure, standing at the edge of the tree line, maybe 200 feet away, just standing there. I squinted, trying to make it out. It looked like a person, tall, dark coat, not moving. I told myself it was a deer, or a shadow, or my eyes playing tricks. I went back inside and locked the door.
I even checked the latch twice, like that mattered.
The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee. I looked out the kitchen window at the field. The figure was gone, but something else was there. A single set of footprints in the snow. They started at the tree line and went in a slow, wide circle around the entire house. A perfect loop. Then back to the trees. I felt cold, not from the weather. I didn't tell my grandma. I didn't want to scare her, and I still hadn't fixed that light. That afternoon, my parents and sister arrived. The house filled up with noise. For a while, it almost worked. I almost forgot what I'd seen in the snow. Almost. That night, we all went to bed late. I was in the upstairs guest room, the one with a window facing the backyard. Around 2 a.m., I woke up. I don't know why, something just felt wrong. I looked at the window. The curtain was open a few inches. I always close it. I got up and walked over. I looked outside. The field was lit by moonlight reflecting off the snow, and there he was. The figure, closer this time, maybe 50 feet from the house, standing completely still, looking up. At my window, I stumbled back. My heart was pounding. I grabbed my phone and turned on the camera, zooming in. But when I looked at the screen, he was gone. I looked out the window again. Nothing, just snow. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning was Christmas. Everyone was happy. I kept checking the windows, like I was counting breaths. After breakfast, I told my dad I was going for a walk. I wanted to see if what I'd noticed yesterday was still there. The snow was fresh from overnight, but underneath it, you could still make out the faint pattern around the house. I followed it along the side, toward the back, and then I saw something that made me stop breathing. The footprints didn't just circle the house. They stopped right under the guest room window. And there, in the snow, a small indent, like someone had knelt down. For a long time, I looked up at the window, my window, the one I'd been sleeping in for 2 nights. I measured the angle later. From that spot in the snow, you could see directly into the bed. He hadn't just been circling, he'd been watching. Every night, waiting. I told my dad. We called the police. They came out, took pictures, asked questions. They never found anyone. But here's the part I never told my family. After everyone left, I helped my grandma clean up. She was in one of her confused states. She looked at me and said something strange. "Did your friend leave?" I asked her what she meant. She said, "The man who visits at night, the one who stands by the trees. I thought he was your friend." I asked her how long she'd seen him. She thought for a moment. Then she said, "Oh, I don't know, a few months maybe." She smiled like it was nothing. "He never comes inside. He just watches." I visit her every month now. The first thing I did was fix the dead light. Then I installed cameras around the property, motion sensor lights, new locks. I've never seen him again on the footage, but sometimes, in the morning, I check the snow, and sometimes there are new footprints. 3 stories, 3 houses, 3 people who thought they were safe. A locked door means nothing to someone patient enough to wait. If you've made it this far, I have a question for you. Which story scared you the most? Story 1, the footprints in the snow. Story 2, the man with no tracks. Or story 3, the watcher in the field. Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for more. And if you have a story of your own, something that happened to you when you were home alone, send it in. I might read it in a future video. Stay safe out there. And maybe check your locks tonight. Thanks for watching.